What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Thee CrazyFaceUno Podcast. I'm your host, Shane McNeely. Just a reminder, CrazyFaceUno is inspiring others to do good and make a difference in our local and global community. And my guest today, he's an old friend, former teammate, Kevin Arnett. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. It has been really cool to kind of reignite our friendship and, kind of catch up. We spent about over an hour and a half talking the other day and just catching up on life and chatting. And it's really been cool to kind of regain that friendship and that relationship. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, and it makes me really excited to chat with you today. Kevin, I've got a few things down, but help me. So I guess let me first say we met when we were both in high school. We were teammates on the wrestling team.
Yep, I think I was a senior. You were a freshman.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
You have gone on to do a lot of really cool and really fun and things that you're passionate about, and I think that's really cool. You have 4 daughters, is that correct?
Yeah, I have 4 daughters, ages 3, 4, 6, and 12.
Nice. And your wife and you together?
Yep, my wife and I, we've been together for about 8 years.
8 years. That's awesome. Got some sage advice, I'm sure, for me. Just over a year here of marriage for myself. But my wife and I have been together. We just had, Facebook always reminds you of things. And
Yeah.
It's been, just over 5 years of us, being together, knowing each other, basically. So.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. So
A place called Camp David, the presidential retreat in Thurmont, Maryland.
Nice.
It's about a half an hour to hour drive north of Washington, D.C.
Nice.
And I was there for 2 years, and then the next 2 years I got stationed in Gulfport, Mississippi with the Seabees.
Nice. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you had the opportunity to meet George W. Bush and Barbara Bush at one point in time?
Yes. So it was actually Laura. Was it Laura Bush? Laura Bush.
Okay.
Yeah. So being at Camp David, I got to see George Bush several times. I'm just going to guess 30 times.
Wow, cool.
And got to watch him fly in on HMX-1 helicopter, land, get on the golf cart. It's kind of crazy. I actually ran the gift shop and bar at Camp David.
Nice.
So, any souvenirs that you buy from there, or if Secret Service or military people need to eat, or or a lot of times they would drink a lot on the weekends or
Sure.
at night. So that was where I worked at. So, interesting story. George Bush is a recovering alcoholic, so he actually never stepped foot inside the bar that I worked. I say it's a bar. It's like it's a gift shop and bar, but not your typical bar.
Sure, yeah.
So his wife would come in there and get drinks and stuff or get souvenirs for their guests, but
Nice.
He never came in there, and he stuck by his, recovering alcoholic. He didn't want to be around alcohol.
Yeah. That's a cool little story or
Yeah, definitely.
bit. What was that process like for you? So you said you wanted to be in the military. That was kind of your plan. Where do you think that came from, or what was your drive to join the military and to be eventually to join the Navy?
That's a good question. I like the grind of, going back to our wrestling days. I like the grind of wrestling, and I'm competitive. I like to work, and college wasn't for me at the time. And I knew that since I was young. It was actually going to be the Army, but ended up being the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And it just that's where life led me.
Yeah.
I never thought would have ever joined the Navy, but that's where I ended up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. How long were you at Camp David stationed there?
I was there for just about 2 years.
2 years. Yeah, it's funny because I was telling you, I remember Coach Roy Monroe, our wrestling coach. I remember him having a picture of you and him telling us about the story of getting the phone call from, which just happens to be your job now, correct?
Exactly.
Is the people that call and kind of do a little background check on the people that are in the military. Is it just all of the military, or like the Navy, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so currently I'm a federal background investigator for the Department of Defense.
Nice.
And so any federal employee, any federal contractor, any military person who's getting, whether it be a top secret or public trust security clearance, the person that basically conduct interviews and record checks to determine suitability for national security clearances.
Very cool. That's awesome. How long have you been doing that?
About 2 years.
2 years. Nice.
Yep.
Nice. And so after you've been in the military, you were in the Navy for, did you say 7? Is that right? 7?
Well, so I was in the Navy for 4 years, but I was in the Air Force for just about 7 years.
Okay. And do you mind just kind of telling us about your time or your stint in the military and kind of where that's taken you and
So I contribute to where I'm at today from my military experience. I joined the Navy right out of high school, went to Camp David. I got to be around the Secret Service all the time, got to do training missions with them. I got to see the president and heads of states. So it really was an eye-opener for me coming from small town Indiana.
Right.
And then I went down to Gulfport, Mississippi with the Seabees. Deployed once to Kuwait there, Camp Air of John Kuwait.
And do you mind just telling us what exactly the Seabees are? That is a new term for me, actually.
Yes. So you think of the Navy, you think of a ship or a boat. But the Seabees their motto is something like they build to fight and win. So they wear camouflage. They're not your traditional Navy, so they're made up of builders, mechanics, electricians, and so they, from what I remember, they could go into a war zone and they could build a base, or they could build a structure, but also defend that structure from the enemy.
Gotcha.
So they could build a house and then take a break from building and fight the bad guys. So, so I was stationed with them down in Gulfport, and it was a great time. And we were actually getting ready to go to Japan for a deployment again. And I ended up getting out of the Navy because it was right after Hurricane Katrina, and Gulfport, Mississippi was still in bad shape a year later. So I actually joined the Gulfport Police Department as a patrolman. And, that's that wrestling mentality coming out of me, the mental toughness. I love the excitement and of being a cop in the hood, chasing dope. That was back in 2008, 2009. So that was not like the police today. There wasn't any cell phone cameras out. So, otherwise you'd probably be seeing me on a YouTube clip. So I was a cop for a while. Ended up moving back to Indiana. And I got a job in a federal prison, and then I also joined the Air Force, the Indiana Air National Guard, as an intelligence analyst.
Okay.
So I work with drone missions, Predators, Reapers, Global Hawks, basically unmanned aerial vehicles that fly, from 10,000 feet all the way up to 70 75,000 feet. We work missions in the Middle East, in other parts of the world. And for anyone familiar with Bo Bergdahl, I worked one of his missions before. When he was captured, and so that's when I say I contribute to where I'm at for my military experience. So not only did I have just amazing experiences in the military, getting to see George Bush, getting to go inside the White House. So I got Sailor of the Year. I got to go inside the White House for that, for a luncheon. Cool. Got to go into the Oval Office, got my picture taken, a lot of cool stuff. And then in the Air Force, I got to work drone missions. And it doesn't get any better than that. And not only did I have really cool experiences, I got 3 college degrees, an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's. Yeah. And the military paid for all that. So the GI Bill paid for everything. Yeah. So you hear a lot about the student debt crisis now and whatnot. And so I went to school for free and got some really cool experiences out of it.
What were your degrees in?
So my associate's is in intelligence studies and technology.
Okay.
Bachelor's is in emergency and disaster preparedness, and then my master's is in organizational leadership.
Nice. Those are all really, I mean, it makes sense as a collective. They all really kind of tie in together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did those because I enjoyed them. I didn't do it to get a job or, they're not very specific. It's not an accounting or a degree like that. I did it because I just wanted to learn and have fun.
Yeah. Did you take those classes? Were you getting your degree while you were in the military still, or was that post-military?
Yeah, so I'm probably one of the few people that it took me 11, 12 years to get a 4-year degree.
Right.
So I took classes 1, 2, 3 classes at a time. Life hits you, and I took a break a couple times, it's just the wrestling mentality, mental toughness. I just never gave up. I continued to take classes until I finally got a bachelor's. And so to say about 12 years to get my bachelor's, but it took me 1 year to get my master's. So I kind of made up for that.
Sure. And something you and I have talked about is just that mental toughness piece and how we feel that wrestling has really given us a mindset, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. I think that's probably the way I would describe it, is that mental toughness, that mindset to continue to take risks, but to work hard and to grind things out. We both talked about it in our phone call how we have used our wrestling experience and our wrestling background in interviews and just throughout life in general, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's not familiar with wrestling, it's not like the WWE wrestling you see on TV. It's the amateur college wrestling,
right.
High school wrestling. It is putting on a singlet, which is like wearing tights, and you're going out in front of a crowd and you're wrestling against another person. And it's not like any other sport. You can't blame it on somebody else if you lose. If you lose in wrestling, it's like Jocko Willink says, retired Navy SEAL, take ownership of your life. And it goes back to wrestling. If you lose, you literally cannot blame anybody.
Right.
It's yourself. And so you have to be able to lose and then rebound and lose quickly, fail fast, and get back to your feet and ready for the next match. And we talked about that as we contribute to our life. Life's not easy, and you're gonna get beat a couple times in life.
Yeah.
But you just got to keep moving forward and get back up.
Yep. Yeah. It's that constant moving forward. It's exactly like you said. You're gonna get knocked down. You got to stand back up, dust yourself off, and get back after it. And you're right. I think that's one of the things that I really loved about wrestling, to be honest, is I played soccer my entire life, and it was always, it was the team sport. And I was never really on teams that really did anything amazing necessarily. You know, we had successes and whatnot, but you know, in a team sport, you know, I know you played football. You're only as good as your teammates and the people around you, and that's great. There's lessons to be learned there as well. But coming from that environment, growing up my entire life until I found wrestling, and then jumping into wrestling, and you get out what you put in, and much like life, you know, and I love that. I love being able to put that time in and put that work in and see myself make those gains and those strides and see the successes that came from the hard work and determination that was put into it, you know?
100% agree. 100%.
Yeah. So you were in the Navy, you were in Camp David, and then you had a few other things in the Air Force. Do you mind if I ask what led to your choice to leave the military?
Yeah, so I was in the military. I was in the Navy down in Gulfport, and like I said, so we were about to deploy to Japan, and I was excited for that. However, I had my oldest daughter, Kylie. She was young, so I got out for her and her mom.
Yeah.
And didn't want to, but I ended up doing it anyways. And,
right.
But then you see, it wasn't a year later I got back in, so I didn't stay out for long. Okay. And then was the police work that you did, was that with the military, or was that separate? That was separate. So that was I worked for the city of Gulfport.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
And you currently live in our hometown, I guess, of Sullivan, Indiana. What was it like moving back to Sullivan?
Well, at first, it's like when you visit, you see a lot of the same old people doing the same old things.
Yeah.
It's always good to come back. But when I came back, I was good. I was happy to see my family and friends. But that only lasted for a short time, because ever since I moved back in 2000, I moved back in 2009, but I still left for the military again. So really in 2011 is when I was here for good.
Okay.
And so I still have the drive and the ambition to leave.
Yeah.
Leave small town Indiana. However, I go where the good Lord takes me, and if He wants me here, then I'll be here for however long I'll need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you came back, that's when you started working at the federal prison? Yeah, I started working at the federal prison
when I came back, and so the same month, I joined the Air National Guard and worked at the federal prison.
Yeah, so the prison is, for those of you listening, it's in Terre Haute, Indiana. It's a federal penitentiary there. It happens to be where Timothy McVeigh was executed. And is it a maximum security, or?
Yeah, it's the only federal death row.
Okay.
They have one of the few terrorist units, which is not commonly known to the public. It is one of a more prestigious federal prison in America.
Yeah, it's been around for a while, and I know I'm a big West Wing fan. I don't know if you've watched that show at all, but they mention it in the West Wing. It's always interesting when you hear that the prison kind of pop up, you know. And I know we know a lot of people that work there currently, and it's kind of one of those places that provides a lot of jobs in the area for sure.
In a rural area like this, it's one of the, it's going to be a good pension check for people that can retire from there. Yeah, and which you no longer work there, and throughout our conversation the other day, one of the things that I thought was really that we had in common was the fact that you left there with a great job, a good paying job. You've got this pension, and you were close, or
a lot closer than me for sure, or other people our age, to retirement.
Yeah, so I had 7 years in the federal prison and 13 years away from retirement, and to where retirement where I would get a pension check for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so I came home one day and told my wife, I said, I don't think I can work there anymore.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm a positive person. I'm a positive thinker. I love positivity. And that working in a prison in and of itself is a negative environment. So I said, there's something else out there for me in life. So what I did was, I went to grad school. So I quit the prison, and I went to grad school for a year, and we lived off the GI Bill. We lived on a strict budget, and people said I was crazy, said I was making a mistake. They said I was not doing what's right for my family.
Yeah.
A lot of negativity coming from people, friends, family, and coworkers that were trying to tell me what was best for me.
How did that affect you?
And it added fuel to my fire. It just drove me to want to succeed even more. And so here I am, unemployed, going to grad school full time, have 4 kids. My wife was working then, and but still, it was tough. We took a significant pay decrease. So
yeah,
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was thousands of dollars that I just left on the table.
Yeah. One of the things I wrote down from our conversation, which goes along with what you're just saying now, is you said, follow your passion and money will come.
Yep.
And I like that. Love that little quote.
Yeah. So I'm a passionate person. I like to be involved with stuff that has a purpose, and so I knew I had a purpose in life. I knew I was not in my passion. So I wanted to follow my passion because, at the end of the day, Shane, I tell my daughters, hey, go chase your dreams, do what you want to do in life and have fun, but chase your dreams, be passionate about what you do, because it's like a crazy statistic that's like 60-70% of people are dissatisfied with their job.
Right.
And so I don't want my kids to be one. Well, if I'm telling my kids to chase their dreams, then who am I not to chase my own dream? Right. So, like I said earlier, it took me about 12 years to get a bachelor's degree. And I always thought, what would happen if I actually focused on school full time, if I just committed to it and didn't have any outside distractors. Yeah. So that's what I did. I focused on school full time, and so going back to high school, my GPA was like 1.9 or 2.0 at the highest. Yeah. I mean, I did not do well. So my bachelor's was a 3.5, and so I went to grad school and graduated with a 3.9. And it's not because I'm intelligent. It's not because I'm smart. I'm just a hard worker, and it's that grind, the mentality of a wrestler, and the mental toughness to keep pushing forward and learn from your mistakes. So I kind of just lost track where I was going with that. But
no, that's okay.
What was your question again?
I just had mentioned, follow your passion and money will come. Kind of talking about, you're following your purpose. And one of the things that you had mentioned and things that I think is really cool as well is that you want your daughters to chase their dreams. And I think that, they get to watch you and your wife chase your dreams as well. But it's not just chasing your dreams and going blindly and expecting it to fall into your lap. It's a lot of hard work, and you continually have shown that it's, you're working hard. You're not just rolling over and hoping that somebody puts an opportunity in your lap and you can run with it, but you're almost creating the opportunities that have presented themselves and creating the opportunity that you have and had that you want.
Exactly. You said it perfectly. And so I'm trying to teach my kids, chase their passion and the money will come. A lot of people get stuck on, I can never take a pay decrease.
Yeah.
I make $50,000 a year, and I cannot, if I get a new job, I cannot take anything less.
Yeah.
Well, that's couldn't be any further from the truth. Is you just have to learn on less than what you make, and it's about not being chasing materialistic things. So to chase my passion, we didn't go out to eat very much. We lived on a strict budget because my passion was greater than trying to go out to eat and buy a nice car, live in that kind of life.
Yeah.
And when you said chase your passion, the money will come. Well, the money came, right? Mm-hmm. So when I left the prison, and I got the job where I'm at now, if you compare the two at retirement, it's a $35,000 difference.
Yeah.
So I chased my passion, and I invested in myself. I became a better person, and through this process, and the money came. So not only did the money come, but my schedule got better.
Yeah. And you enjoyed what you were doing, and it gave you I feel like it gives you this sense of fulfillment and purpose and value. Do you feel that?
Absolutely. We talked about the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. Mm-hmm. And so kind of one of the things that started me on this track was in early 2016, I believe it was, or late 2015. I had a supervisor, Gilliam. He actually gave me that book. And as a first, so I was raw. I wanted to succeed and become a better person and all this, but I wasn't refined. I was raw.
Yeah.
Well, he gave me this book, and he kind of helped shape me. And so reading Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, it was kind of shocking for me. I'm like, this is what I need. This is, right. I need a why. I'm coming into a prison where there's rapists and murderers and child molesters. It's a negative environment. Like, why am I coming here, for a paycheck?
Yeah.
Life's more than just a paycheck. And I would rather be happy and make less money. So I was prepared to make less money. It just happened that I ended up making more money than I did at the time. And it all goes back to chasing my purpose and finding my why.
Yeah.
I'll just read this off my LinkedIn. It's about me. It says, my why. I do what I do to change my family tree, to get the most potential out of myself as I can, and pass that ambition on to my daughters. My passion is to help people live a happy life and to never stop growing as a person, father, husband, and leader. So that's my
awesome.
why. My why is exactly that. And it's not about money. And who's to say that if my why takes me to a job making half of what I do now, then that's where it takes me. And that's where I'm building the foundation of my life financially, to where I'm able to do that. So you're in the position with CrazyFaceUno. You're finding your why. You're chasing your passion.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Not everyone sees the struggles that you're going through, or the what you've given up to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
Right. But in 2 years, when you got your own YouTube show, like, or in the publicity of Joe Rogan's show, you can date back to, you started a grassroots campaign.
Yeah, definitely. And I, we have both talked about this, together, of how so the next part of your life, and one of the parts of chasing your why, by the way, if you're listening and you haven't checked out this book, I would highly suggest and encourage you to do so. Obviously, Kevin is obviously on board as well. It's Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's a great book. It's going to challenge you regardless of where you're at in life. It's going to challenge you in different ways. It's going to open your eyes to just a lot of different things out there. It's powerful. It's beautiful. There's a bunch of different books that he's also written, whether it's like Find Your Why and Start With Why, I believe. Or no, there's another, I don't know. There's a couple other books that he has out there. I've listened to the Find Your Why, and I haven't listened to some of the other ones, but it's great. It's really great, and I would highly encourage you all to check it out. With that said, finding your why and chasing your why has led you to a few different things. You and your wife have both started your own businesses.
Yeah. So start with why, finding your purpose. That's kind of how we want to help people, right? It's exactly what you're doing with CrazyFaceUno.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can we do our part in life to help other people? Well, we wanted to start a business for a while, but we couldn't really figure out like what kind of business do we want to start.
Yeah.
And it came down to what's our passion, what's our ambition, and what are we good at? Well, so one aspect is a financial coaching business for federal prisoners.
Yeah. And
me working in the federal prison, I know that there's no financial coaching out there, and a very high percentage of crimes are related to money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, hey, let's create a business to teach inmates about money, basic middle school, high school level information. And so we're helping people on a massive scale, but we're getting paid for it.
Yeah.
So it's called Pink Lion Financial, and we've been in federal prison one time teaching inmates about money, and it worked great. And then the other aspect of the business is life insurance for burial insurance.
Yeah.
My wife, her dad and brother both died unexpectedly with no life insurance.
Yeah.
Their family was left to to cover the cost, and they struggled and had to get help to pay for the funeral. And so my wife's taken the lead on selling burial insurance, so no other family has to go through what she went through, because when you don't have the money to pay for a funeral, you have to give someone a lesser funeral than they deserve.
Sure.
So that's kind of how what led us into these two businesses. And so far they've been relatively successful. We're not, we're setting the foundation in 2019 and for a future business that we can pass down to our kids.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, this is the thing that really, you guys starting these businesses between the two of you, and, our conversation about CrazyFaceUno and what you guys are doing, there's just been so many similarities that we've found, and just that grind and kind of chasing our passions within that. One thing I really loved, and I remember you telling me when I reached out to you about being on the podcast, is like, yeah, that's like my wife and I's motto, to do good and make a difference. And where did that come from?
So we both grew up very poor. We both grew up around drugs and alcohol. And so we grew up a different way, and we wanted our kids to have something, a different life than what we grew up with. And I guess it created the same mentality in us, in that we want to help others, because it's kind of like we want to be there for people that no one was there for us, in a sense.
Yeah.
Be the person who you always wanted, or who you needed. There's some quote like that. It's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah. And what I love about that is that you have taken that idea and turned it into something, and it's not just been, this is what we want to do, and this is something that we subscribe to in some ways, but you're not doing anything about it. And what else I love about it is it's really foundational to what CrazyFaceUno is all about. And I've really worked at not limiting what CrazyFaceUno is in the mission statement, to inspire others to do good and make a difference in our local and global community. I wanted to keep it open. And what I love about what you guys are doing, or like having that motto just for your own life, is that you found what that means for you. And one thing that I continually keep saying, as I've been challenged with like narrowing in my mission statement and being more direct in what that is and what doing good is or what making a difference looks like. And I just don't think that part is important. I think that it's important to understand that doing good and making a difference can be a business that you start for your family, the ambition that you show your kids to chase their dreams, to help prisoners with their financial literacy, to have a business. Yes, you're making money, but you're helping people with the end of life and that experience for, other people. And when you set these intentions or these mottos for life, I think that you have to filter things through that lens as well. And as you start to filter things through that lens of like, man, I want my life to be doing good, helping others, and making a difference in the world, then everything you do starts to take shape and start to filter through that filter. And it's changed my mindset. It's changed the way I've looked at life. It's changed the way I look at other people. It's changed the way I interact with people. If you know me and you're close to me, you know that I just get so frustrated with driving and drivers and that kind of thing. And it's honestly, it's a thing. Nothing makes me more aggravated and frustrated than the silly things that people do while driving or don't do while driving. But it's really challenged me to change my mindset and change my perspective and change the way I respond to some of those situations, because I do want to do good, because I'm asking others to do good, because I do want to make a difference, because I do want to help people. And me flipping somebody off or yelling or allowing them to take my power, allowing them to change my mood and by an action that is out of my control is silly. It's ridiculous. And it's something that I have continually work on and I'm continually working on. We are imperfect people, but when I even notice myself getting frustrated at something silly or something that is out of my control, recognizing that has been huge, and just bringing that back. All that to say, I love that you guys have taken that concept to do good and make a difference, and you've made it fit your life, and you've made it work, and you filtered things through that lens into your personal lives.
Yeah, so you have a great point. Everybody can make a difference and inspire others in different ways. So we all have our strengths, and I like to focus on my strengths and not even worry about my weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I might be good at something and you might be good at something different, but we can still use our strengths to inspire others and just help people. And, you might hear people say, if I ever hit the lottery, I'll help people. Well, you can help people now. You can inspire people now. One thing that my wife and I started doing, we've done it only for 2 years, but every Christmas we like to go to a random restaurant and then give a waitress or a waiter $100 tip.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we've only done it 2 years. The first year, the waitress cried. It was awesome.
Yeah.
The second year, the person, maybe there was a language barrier.
Yeah.
And the person just took it and put it in his pocket and did not say a word. And we've seen him several times there since then, but he has not acknowledged it. But still,
but it doesn't matter.
Exactly, it doesn't matter, and it's two totally different reactions. But it's something that, we have our kids help us, and we explain to them what we're doing the 2 years, and this will be the third year. But we want to not only help people and talk about it, but we want to walk the walk. We want to actually do little things, and
right.
It can be as little as holding the door open. So I make my 4-year-old hold the door open when we go places.
Absolutely.
For other people, and because maybe that person will see a 4-year-old holding the door open and get inspired to do it for somebody else.
Yeah, and I love that. Gosh, I love that. And that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly why I'm not going to to narrow it beyond
Exactly.
do good and make a difference, because I think it's as simple as smiling at somebody on the sidewalk can be a difference maker to do good and make a difference. You never know what the person next to you, the person you pass by, is going through, and just acknowledging their existence there and smiling can make an impact on somebody's life. And it may not be the impact that's going to change their life forever, but those small, seemingly insignificant things can have huge impacts on people on their day-to-day life. And whether that's, man, I have the ability to tip 25% today. It doesn't have to be $100. It can be, hey, I'm going to tip 25% instead of 20 or 15 or whatever it is. And it's going to be, I'm going to say hi. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to meet a stranger. I'm going to, give a compliment. Something I've talked about on the podcast, and something I've really enjoyed doing, is if I want to change the world and I want to change things for good and for positive, like in a positive direction, then I need to acknowledge the good and the positive and not just the negative. We're so quick to notice the negative things that are going on in the world and the things that we don't like, that sometimes we neglect and we forget that we haven't shown appreciation for the things that are good and that we do like and that we're thankful for. So when I see somebody, even if it's a stranger, that's like, man, you picked up that piece of garbage. Hey, thanks so much for doing that. I recognize it. I see you. That's like basically what I'm saying is, I see you. I saw that you picked that up. That's awesome. Do you think that person's going to pick up something else in the future? Most likely,
Absolutely.
And that's such a simple way as well. And I just don't want to limit what doing good and making a difference can be. And I think that you're proving that point in that example as you're going. One thing I continually say too is that exactly what doing bad and not doing good and not making a difference is. I don't have to explain to you what not making a difference and what doing something bad is. Like it's easy. That's easy to understand. And so it's giving people those small ways to do good and make a difference.
So when you're saying that, I think of Earl Nightingale and the story about how you have one farmer. He plants his 2 holes, and one hole he plants corn, and the other, a few feet away, he plants nightshade. Now, nightshade is a deadly poison. So the water plants them, he waters them, he takes care of the land. Well, what's going to happen? Right? So the land's going to produce in abundance whatever you planted. So that land's going to produce corn and poison both. So now let's replace the word land with the human mind. So your mind is much more fertile than a piece of farmland. So your mind is going to return to you whatever you plant. So do you want to plant positivity or negativity in your life? People often complain about negative things happening, bring negative things into their life. And, if you want to plant negativity in your mind, then that's all you're going to think about. And we live in the greatest country this earth has ever seen. You can have any life that you want in America. But if you watch the news, you may not think that. But I refuse to let the negativity control me. And I look at it like Earl Nightingale, the corn and the nightshade. I'm trying to plant positivity in my mind every single day. And I try to, and granted, I get, or a disclaimer, do I let negative things bother me? 100%. But it's not on a scale that bothers me anymore. So I might have a bad minute or a bad hour, but I'll never have a bad day. I'll never have a bad 2 hours. And it's all about positivity.
And I was talking to she's a life coach. My wife and I did this experience through Airbnb a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to this gal that was there as a part of this experience as well. And she's a life coach, and we were just talking about how like emotions and whatnot, and she was giving me, honestly, some really solid advice and something that I've implemented into my life, and that is that you can assign emotion to things, and that we do automatically. Over time we've like learned these different ways or these different things about like assigning emotion to things, events that happen or whatever that is. And man, if I dropped something and I spilled something, there was a time in my life in the last year, honestly, that would have just made me furious and I would have lost my shit. And, and I've really been working on myself and working on my responses to things and, just different, my own self, my own mental health, my own self. But one of the things that's really been beneficial is there's been times when just my own mind is plays those games and wants to go negative, and I'm not going to assign that emotion to that. And telling myself that and working through that. There's been things that have irritated me. You're married. If you're married out there, if you have a significant other, you get it. Like, you're going to get frustrated at some point in time. Sometimes they're just the most ridiculous things that you're frustrated at. But, for me, it's been checking myself and going, I'm not going to assign emotion to that. It doesn't deserve my emotion. It's just happened. It's out of my control, or whatever that might be. There's just so many different things, but that's just something I've continually caught myself in and telling myself, I'm not going to give that emotion. I'm not going to get mad at that. I'm not going to be sad at that. I'm not going to be, whatever that is. And there's a time and a place to have emotion. And it's been really beneficial to me of just recognizing when I'm getting worked up or when I'm having emotion of something that doesn't require that and doesn't need that, and it's not necessary.
Now, once you recognize that, is it not a game changer?
Oh, it's such a game changer.
It changes everything.
Yeah, because you start to see it in so many different places and so many different areas, and that's what I mean. Like, it's honestly, I've been doing this for almost 2 weeks now, and it's legitimately changed the game for me. Where I go, oh, yeah, I dropped that, I spilt that sauce all over myself. And I'm not going to get mad at that. It doesn't deserve an emotion. It just, it's happened, and I wipe it off and I move on to the next thing. And it's been huge for me. It's definitely been a game changer.
And myself as well, in my family, that happened to me about in 2016. I had 2016 was my life changing year. And that's when I really focused on that and not letting stuff take control of me. And so in my my 2-year-old my 3-year-old might drop something, make a mess, and she might be crying because she thinks she's gonna get in trouble, and I'm just like, hey, her name's Kansas, like, it's okay, you just dropped it, it was an accident, like, we'll clean it up, it's literally no big deal. And so we learn this as adults, but so my question is, how can we ensure other people learn this earlier?
Yeah,
and it goes back to your motto with CrazyFaceUno, doing good and inspiring others. So maybe you can teach somebody that, and then they teach somebody that, and now you're changing 27 different people about how they look at life.
Exactly, and it's these conversations. I have if you look at the guests that I've had on the podcast, it's wide. There's a variety of people and different things, and I love that. It's going to continue to be that as well, because I think that everybody has a story and everybody can relate to things differently. Tomorrow's podcast will be an accountant. He's a senior accountant. That's his profession. That's his thing. But I think that throughout that conversation, maybe there's one person that listens that takes something from that, that's able to take that idea, take that conversation and be like, man, that really made me think about this. And that's how they change their life. If that's the one spark, the seed that's planted, isn't that great? Isn't that awesome? And if not, then move on. Then it's fine. It's neither here nor there. It's just providing an opportunity. And whether that's through this conversation or others, I think it's huge. And then you start to see the ripple effect. You throw a pebble into the water and you see that ripple. And as you start to sprinkle that more and more into the water, you start to see, raindrops. When raindrops fall, I get to look out over my balcony into this pond behind my apartment that I live in. And when the rain starts dropping, it's this like rhythmic thing. There's these ripples and these effects, and you see that throughout other organizations or through different companies or through different people talking and whatnot, the ripple effect that their conversation, their platforms have. And that's a goal. That's a dream, to have multiple ripples happening, these little pebbles that get thrown into the water and, make these waves and change begins to happen, I think. So, yeah, you have to start somewhere, and it can be from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. And I think that regardless, I think it's important to keep going, and it's an important thing to talk about. Kevin, I'm really interested in how you would describe the changes that have taken place in your life since high school, since I knew you, to today. I mean, you can see them throughout your conversation, but when you look at your life and you look back, I know for myself, when I look back, I'm like, man, I have changed so much. I've grown up. I've changed in the last year. I've grown up. I've matured. I've become a different person. I'm a different man than I was before, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'm happy to continually grind away at being the best version of myself that I possibly can be. What are some of the changes that you've noticed, or how would you describe the way you've changed from high school to the military to today?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago, so I continually try to develop and become better. And so dating back to high school, I got out of my environment, number one. So I took a risk. I was ambitious. I wanted to join the military and travel, and I want to see outside of small town Indiana.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing that just changed me. I mean, we're not very diverse in Sullivan. And
no.
Then I was, then my best friends at boot camp, one was an Asian guy, Middle Eastern guy. So that was my first, that was an eye-opener, is join the military, get out of that environment, do something different. But it really is being ambitious, always taking smart risk, and continually failing, because I fail constantly. But I learned from my failure and I continue to, improve. So, and the biggest thing that's made me who I am today is, my wife and I talk about it being a course correction and a life course correction. So we're going one way, we think we're going one way, and then all of a sudden something life happens, or something happens and we change course. So prior, the old me would fight it, or maybe not want to go, not go with the new change. And I think our ability to adapt, my wife and I's ability to adapt to any situation is, and be positive about any situation. So and it's really helped me grow and develop. And so when something happens in life and your first reaction is, oh crap. And then all of a sudden, okay, how do we deal with this? Let's focus on the issue. Right. And to not let that issue take your power, take your control, take your emotion, and treat it like a business and continually moving forward, and never stop learning. So I know I kind of was rambling there, but
no, you're fine.
That's kind of transformed me who I am today, and I hope that I become next year. I'm completely a different but better person than I am today. Yeah.
Well, and I know I'm the same way. I'm different than I was 6 months ago. I'm constantly, working and changing, and just recognizing different things in my life that I want to work on and change, and being intentional about those different things. I was reading a book. I'm reading a couple books actually right now. I do Audible, so I'm technically listening to them, but I have 3 books that I'm listening to. But one is 13 Things That Mentally Tough People Don't Do. And it's really good. It's actually got a lot of solid things. But
nice.
One of the topics that I listened to this morning, I've actually been starting my day. This is another piece from the lady Geneva is her name. If you're listening, Geneva, thank you for the suggestions and the advice that you gave me. She's the life coach that I met. But she's like, I start my day and I listen to my audiobooks in the morning. I start my day with that. And, I've got a little group of guys that we've been, listening or reading a book. And so I've got that one, I've got this other book, and I've been spending time and making notes and writing down and being intentional, and not just a flippant thing, but I want to learn. I want to improve. And so one of the things that they talked about in the book today was calculated risks, and stepping outside of your comfort zone. And it doesn't mean that you just flippantly go and do something, but you make a calculated risk. And if it fails, or if it doesn't go the way you want it to, you tried, you go back to the drawing board and you fix, you course correct, and you make those corrections or those adjustments you need. But that speaks to maybe what you were just saying a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you say that, I think of you had Thomas More on a few episodes back, I believe. He climbed Mount Denali.
Yeah.
And so, calculated risk, he was intentional to climb a mountain.
Yeah.
And so he took a risk, but it was calculated because he prepared for it. I mean, he had the first one, I think, 5 weeks or something like that. And,
yeah.
But, and so that's what I think about when you talk about calculated risk, and
right?
Being intentional,
right? He didn't just go out there with the shirt on his back. He was intentional about the way he went about it. He researched. He did his homework. He did his work prior to that. And even the one Kilimanjaro, I believe it was, or I believe Kilimanjaro. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I'm thinking of Tyler Dunning, who was just on the podcast. We dropped his podcast on yesterday, and he was talking about there was this one climb that he did that he didn't make it the first time, and he had to go back and do it again in order to reach that goal. And I think that's an important lesson as well of like, man, I did do my due diligence in preparing, but it didn't work out for me that time. But that doesn't mean that it can't. It means I just have to go back. I have to figure out where I made a mistake or if there was something in my control to change. And if there isn't, then I have to, look at that and evaluate. And that was the other part to that, is like evaluating. So take these calculated risks, and then success or not, you need to then reevaluate and evaluate how that turned out. And then those are like teaching and learning moments. For you with whatever you're doing or whatever endeavor you're going about.
Yeah, and it's in a way it's kind of like the. Have you ever heard the story about the burn your boats?
I don't think I have.
So it's a really cool story. I'll try to summarize it. So the Aztec Empire had defeated many tribes, many opponents, and before, right? They were unbeatable in a sense.
Yeah.
And in like 1518 or 1519, this guy, Hernan Cortez, he had like 500 or 600 men, 15 or 20 horses, and he goes there to conquer it. And he didn't have enough men, but so one thing that he did was he and his crew, they burned all their boats. So they pull up to the land and they burn all their boats, right?
Yeah.
Well, why would you burn your boats? Well, some historians talk about like to ensure loyalty and not someone's trying to like leave or something, but it's because they were intentional. That he wanted his men to commit to succeeding, right? Mm-hmm. So, in a sense, they burned their boats and there was no turning back, right? There was you're gonna win or you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And well, it took him 2 years, but Cortez's victory, he actually started the fall of the Aztec Empire. And that Thomas More guy, so he actually talked about he was willing to die to accomplish his goal.
Yeah.
Okay. And that really struck out to me. Listen to that podcast, because then it reminds me of burn your ships, like burn your boats. So if you have your boats, shored up or on shore, you can always retreat and leave. That's in the back of your mind.
It's that like safety, that like comfort.
it's safety net. But if you burn them, there's literally no turning back. You have to succeed. And whether it's climbing a mountain or when I went to grad school, like I quit my job to do it. Like if I didn't get a C average or better in my class, like I wouldn't get paid by the GI Bill.
Yeah.
If I didn't get paid by the GI Bill, I couldn't feed my family.
Right.
So I burned my boats. I burned the job.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be intentional but be calculated and not, Cortez didn't just fight the Aztec Empire. He didn't wake up one day and say, he planned it. It took him 2 years too. And the 2 years that's what we have to, a lot of us get distracted in life because we want it now, instant gratification. And you have to look at the end result. Visualize what's going to happen when I succeed. You have to prepare that it's going to take a while for you to accomplish your goal.
Right.
And I think Cortez's burn your boats story is really, that's one that I think of a lot because I have to burn my boat sometimes.
Well, and how I relate that back to my own life and Crazy Face Uno is honestly through the podcast. I have been, in the beginning, I was really, really scared about putting my opinions and my thoughts out there. One-on-one, I can have a conversation, with people and I'm free to just communicate and talk freely. But, I was really nervous about there's my family, even of like my viewpoints from my family. I don't see things the same way as my family does. And that's okay. I'm not telling my family they have to see my way and I'm don't want them to expect me to think their way. And, even friends or whatnot that you just, I don't know. I don't want people to look at me differently or whatever that is. And I hadn't really moved beyond that and past that. And, a lot of the podcast is some vulnerability on my end. And I expect to be the example to my guests and to the people that are on the podcast of, hey, look, I'm being vulnerable too. I'm not just asking a bunch of personal questions to you and asking you to be vulnerable, but I'm putting myself out there as well. And, taking that risk of, as the people pleaser inside of me of people looking at me differently and thinking differently of me, and maybe they don't like what I have to say and maybe they don't want to listen, and that's okay too. But being okay with that. But it's that risk of me stepping out and being like, okay, well, I'm doing this, so I'm going to take this risk. And that's kind of in some ways, I feel like how I've relate that back to maybe a part of my life and a part of Crazy Face Uno that relates to that a little bit.
Yeah, and you may not inspire or have your family that supports you or close friends, but for every person that doesn't support you that's close to you, you're going to inspire 2 or 3 people who you don't even know.
Sure, yeah.
So it kind of evens out, and they say some of the people that won't support you or are your closest friends and family, right?
Yeah.
So. But how many people that do you know that are podcast experts or, so it's
I don't
like,
really know any.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you can tell your best friend, hey, this is what I'm doing. And he's going to say, doesn't sound like a good idea. Well,
yeah.
But what's that person's expertise? What are they? It's just an average person with an average
sure
opinion. But you go to join a Facebook group about podcasting, you're going to have a lot of support there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Inspire a lot more people.
Yeah. And it's just grinding and keeping after that ambition and that goal, and not giving up on that. One of the things I wrote back, makes me want to look back. I said, I found it, I think. Yeah. So this is vulnerability at its max here. But just a little note that I made one day. It was if you want Crazy Face Uno to make it, you must go for it. Don't let doubt get to you. Don't let other people, friends, or otherwise make you question your dream. Don't quit. Pour your heart and soul into your work. Pour your money into all you do. Dream on. And it's just, a thought that I had. I was having some self-doubt and some, just some discouragement, I guess. At one point in time, I don't know when this even was, to be honest. I just remember writing it. It's been a while ago, kind of back in the beginning stages. But it's one of those things that I didn't want to forget that thought. And if I want this to succeed, I can't just half-heartedly be a part of it. A, that's just not who I am. And B, I have to put myself into it. And so... yeah, it's just a reminder for me sometimes to, keep that going and that ambition and to pour my heart and soul into what I'm doing. And that's kind of always been my part of who I am and whatnot. But I know you have some different ways of staying motivated. And do you mind telling us or telling our listeners, some of those ways and which you stay motivated?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you said that because I'm actually looking at so in my home office I've got nothing but positive quotes from successful people, and I've got them plastered all over my wall.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about what you just said, I'm looking at Amelia Earhart's quote: "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity." So. And that's one that I go by a lot in my life is, you want to do Crazy Face Uno, but putting it out there for the public to see, your friends, your families, and being vulnerable, that's a tough decision. But it's the toughest decision, right?
Yeah.
Because once you actually got past that and you started doing it, I mean, how many episodes you got in 2 months or 3 months now? Like, you're crushing it.
Like 33, 34, I don't know, 35.
Yeah. So the difficult thing is the decision to act.
Yeah.
The rest is merely tenacity. Like it couldn't be any closer to the truth because, and just do like going to the gym. It's hard, but the decision to go to the gym is hard. When you're at the gym, you're like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah. And then afterwards it feels amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So motivation is, it's my life in a way. I love motivation. I get motivated, by listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Or so anywhere I drive somewhere, I'm always listening to a positive or motivational podcast.
Yeah.
I've got these motivational quotes all over my wall.
Yeah.
I get motivated or inspired when I'm driving down the road and I see somebody running down the road and they're working out.
Sure.
And then they're running. Why can't I?
Yeah.
Or my 92-year-old neighbor, who the guy's a beast. He's having some health issues now, but I mean, he's 91 years old, and he was out mowing his grass. He's
that's awesome.
Driving his car, and it just motivates me. So I try to find motivation in everything.
Yeah.
And for example, I just interviewed someone today who's a nurse practitioner, and she started as an EMT, and she just worked her way up through the years to become a nurse practitioner. And it really motivates me because, you kind of, if you watch the news too much, you're going to see that you can't succeed, and that, but you can, because people like that, she starts as an EMT and worked her way up to the top through the years. And that's what, I look at my life, and that's where I'm trying to continually work my way up to the top. I literally used to live in the projects. Yeah. And I know they're not like the Baltimore projects from The Wire, but they're projects. That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so I like to say I came from the projects and started from the bottom, and now I'm in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get to the top.
Right.
And whatever I can pull motivation to get me to the top, that's what I can do, because I think we all face that little voice in our head, that negative voice that says you're not good enough, you can't do it. And just, trying to overcome that, I need all the motivation I can get.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, you sent me a picture of your wall after we talked, and it actually seeing your space. So this is an example of just the simple things of being intentional about reaching out to people. Or, hey, I'm going to send you the picture of my wall. I'll show it to you. And you sent that to me. And what I did that evening, or the next day, or whatever it was I cleared out my room. Most of you know I just moved to Florida, and so our spare bedroom is still loaded with boxes. But I wasn't able to get to my desk to work. I had been working from my couch, and ergonomically my back and my body were saying, you got to do something different. And so it's been really cool to use that as my motivation too. Like, hey, I want to do something like that. Like I want to have this space that I can be inspired. And so I cleared off the desk and I cleared a path to my desk, and I set up lights and a lamp. And, I'm sitting here right now. I've got the podcast, the microphone and, my podcasting microphone and my equipment here. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm able to utilize that. And that in and of itself is motivating. It's putting me in an environment that says like, hey, we're getting stuff done. When you're sitting down here, this is time to work and it's time to dig in. And I've got a lot of work to do in this room, but I'm excited about that. It motivates me, and I want to get some posters on the wall, and I want to get some different motivational things for myself, and whatever that looks like as well. And so if you've got those things, one, tell us about it. So when I post the pictures on Instagram or Facebook, let us know what motivates you. Tell us. I would love to hear from you. One of my goals for CrazyFaceUno, and one of the things that I really want to see, is engagement from people that are listening or people that are following and maybe they resonate with something from a podcast. I want to hear about that stuff. One, that's motivating for me, and you never know who else that might help out in the world of the things. And maybe that's what will encourage somebody to listen, which doesn't only benefit CrazyFaceUno and myself, but it also benefits other people if they're inspired by, a conversation with Kevin, or a conversation with Thomas More, or a conversation with Tyler Dunning, and they pick up his book and they read it and it inspires them, or whatever it is, whatever that is out there. Just engage with us. Let us know what you're thinking. If you don't like it, that's cool too. Write about it. Tell us about it. We'll listen. I'll listen. And we can have a discussion and open up that dialogue. I think that's so huge. It's something that I push and talk about. Kevin, you mentioned when you were talking just a few minutes ago about what we hear, and we talked about this when we were talking the other day about fear. The media and the news and everything we see around us, I feel like, is all fear-based. It's all this negativity and this fear, which is part of my motivation with CrazyFaceUno as well, of just being this positive space that you can hear positive things and whatnot. But has that affected you as well? I know it kind of has, right?
Yeah, so this is what I do with my kids. I say, I tell them fear is a, and then they finish it and they say liar.
I like that.
So anytime they're scared to do something, or nervous, and I'll just say fear is that, and they might be, one of my kids might be crying, but they say liar, and I'm trying to teach them fear is a liar.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown. Yeah, it's scary. Fear from the TV. Yeah, you should trust the news outlets, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, fear is self-imposed. That's kind of how I look at it.
Sure. Yeah, I like that. Fear is a liar. I'm actually going to write that down, and I think that's going to be one of the pieces that I put on my wall at some point in time. Is fear is a liar.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Nice. Yeah. It is. It's like, did you had fear when you started CrazyFaceUno, right? A little bit of fear, and you realize, what was the fear about? Like, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, so you've got this business, the financial, you and your wife are a part of. You're currently, the focus is to, teach people in the prison system, financial literacy, essentially. What are your ambitions and what are your goals with that?
So I want to help as many people as I can, number one. And ideally, to continue to work in the federal prison system and move to other prisons and scale that business to, help a lot more people. Maybe move into the military capacity, the realm of the military, since I was in the military and I know how it works. And I know that, like I used to blow a lot of money. And to help military people and just kind of see where it takes us. So I know that I know that if something comes up, I can always adapt, right? So I may want to focus in prisons now, but next year I might be in the military, and that's my focus. I feel like God opens up doors, and if you follow Him and follow the opportunities, you'll never go wrong.
Right.
So I used to try to plan my life, and it never worked.
Yeah.
So I kind of just I don't want to say I go with the flow, but I go in a direction until I'm taken in a new direction. So if I was approached today and said, "Hey, I'll give you $10,000 for your business," I'd probably say, "Okay." I don't know. I don't know where I'll be next year. I expect to grow and scale the business. However,
you're present in the moment right now and focused on that. And I respect that a lot. I mean, I think that's important. One of the reasons I asked is, have you heard of, there's different online courses that you can buy. I've actually bought a couple, just trying to learn a little bit about sponsorships, actually. But with Udemy, Udemy, I believe is how it's spelled. But you can create your own courses and sell them on Udemy as well. And I could see, that being something that maybe could be beneficial to you. And I know I've talked to you about it. Like I would like to learn more about financial literacy and maybe take your course or, have you kind of run me through something as well. I think that would be amazing. Or my wife and I are, and I'm not saying that's for free. I think that it's got a value, obviously. And I don't know. That popped in my mind as we were talking, actually. So,
it's funny because my wife and I have talked about that down the road, creating a course, and instead of us going into the prison, the prisoners watch our tapes in our series. Sure. Kind of thing, if that's what you mean. And then a course, developing courses and stuff. We've absolutely thought about it.
Yeah. It's definitely a possibility of scale for sure. But I was curious. So, well, Kevin, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, but I think we'll, start to wrap things up. Do you have anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I guess I'll leave your listeners with, just become the best person you could be. And the more that you give, the more you receive. Yeah. The more you help people, the more you'll be helped. Yeah. And it's been true in my life. I've been blessed beyond measure. And the more that I focused on helping others, the more I've been helped and been blessed in life. So just go help somebody.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing your story. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime, and maybe you can tell some old stories from the high school days or, the military days or whatnot. But yeah, thank you so much. I think that your story and what you've even shared of that grind and our conversation, I think is really cool. I really like, and I'm inspired and by your life and by the things that you're doing, and just to be in it with someone that's also got ambition and wants to, change the way, not only for their family, change the way their family, sees the world, but also the way they interact with the world themselves and doing good and making a difference. I think that's awesome. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that part of your life with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and continue to change the world one podcast at a time.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch. We'll keep in touch for sure. And I hope you all enjoyed the podcast today. I love you all out there. Again, engage with us. Let us know if you like the podcast. Let us know what stuck out to you in the podcast today. And if you've got anything that you want to hear about, if you've got a topic, you've got someone you want to hear from, write that in the comments as well. Let us know. We want to hear about it. We want to hear from you. Thank you all again. We love you, and much, much appreciation for you listening all the way to the end, just like you have. Thank you, and we love you. Peace!